He did come back, and he was as good as new. He didn't bark at anything, but he had a strange expression on his face that made me think. There are many stories in Hollywood about fights on set and stress behind the scenes, but the one about Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones stands out. Two hugely talented actors with very different styles, they allegedly had a memorable encounter before filming Batman Forever that made one of them look clearly uneasy. What really happened between the funny, high-energy person and the serious, straightforward actor? Some say it was a battle of egos, while others say it was a difference in how they saw art. After years of rumors, Jim Carrey has finally said what everyone thought. Jim Carrey's reputation is full of problems. James Eugene Carrey was born on January 17, 1962, in Newmarket, Ontario, Canada. Jim Carrey grew up in a place that was not famous for its movies or stars. As a child in Canada, he became interested in comedy and acting at a young age. He often used humor to connect with others and express himself. Carrey was naturally good at accents and physical comedy from a very young age. These are skills that would later become central to who he is as a performer. His early life taught him to be strong and determined, which were important skills for him as he pursued a job in show business. Carrey was working on the emotional style that would make him one of the most famous comedians of our time long before he became famous. Carrey started doing stand-up comedy in Toronto in the 1980s. He quickly became a part of the city's comedy scene and slowly gained confidence on stage. He was able to try out over-the-top facial expressions, energetic movements, and sharp observational humor in these shows. Soon, his rising drive led him to move to Los Angeles, where he hoped to make it in TV and movies. The change was hard, but Carrey stood out because he didn't give up. He kept practicing, going on endless auditions, and changing his comedic style to fit American crowds while keeping the uniqueness that made his shows stand out. Carrey's big break came when he was hired as a regular actor on the sketch comedy show In Living Color, which ran from 1990 to 1994. The show made him famous across the country and gave him a chance to show off all of his funny skills. Carrey showed how good he was at physical comedy, voice work, and improvising through a wide range of memorable roles and sketches. His performances quickly made him stand out as a cast member, which brought him a lot of attention and led to film roles. This time marked the change from a struggling performer to a growing star, setting the stage for the huge success that would soon come. There was a big change in Jim Carrey's work in 1994. In just 1 year, he gave standout efforts in Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, The Mask, and Dumb and Dumber. His big-time fame came almost overnight thanks to these movies. His comedic skills were shown off in different ways in each part. As crazy as Ace Ventura's confidence is, The Mask's energy is like a cartoon, and Dumb and Dumber's is sincere but silly. People really liked her, and she quickly became one of the most bankable stars in Hollywood. In the mid-1990s, his ability to carry movies with his personality and body changed the way comedies were made. After this huge jump, Carrey continued to rule the box office from 1995 to 1997. Ace Ventura, When Nature Calls made him even more popular, and Batman Forever put him in a major franchise and introduced him to a wider global audience. The role was different from his usual comedic leads, but it showed that he was ready to try new things with character and tone. Liar Liar, which came out in 1997, was one of his most successful comedies and made him an even bigger star. His trademark energy was shown in the movie, which also had emotional depth and hints of a wider range that went beyond straight comedy. In the last few years of the 1990s, Carrey started to write more serious songs. He got great reviews for his roles in The Truman Show and Man on the Moon between 1998 and 2000. These parts were very different from what he had done before, and they showed that he could give nuanced, emotionally complex performances. Carrey played a man who slowly learned the truth about his life in The Truman Show, getting praise for how calm and open he was. In Man on the Moon, he played comic Andy Kaufman, which showed how committed he was to telling stories through characters. He won a lot of awards for these roles, which cemented his image as more than just a funny actor. In 2000, Carrey played the lead part in How the Grinch Stole Christmas, which was very hard on the body because of the heavy makeup and over-the-top acting. The movie was a huge hit at the box office and introduced Carrey to a new group of viewers. At this point, he was still trying to find a balance between popular appeal and intellectual ambition. Between 2000 and 2005, he was in movies like Bruce Almighty and Me, Myself, and Irene, which both did well with critics. He was able to return to broad comedy in these plays, which also had themes of identity, responsibility, and personal growth. During the same time period, Carrey kept trying out dramatic and unusual parts. His work in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind showed a more quiet and thoughtful side, which got him a lot of praise from critics. The movie focused on emotional openness and nuance. A big change from his earlier high-energy shows. Thank You, I Love You. Philip Morris showed that he was still willing to take creative chances by mixing serious and funny themes. These projects made it clearer that Carrey wanted to explore art in new ways instead of sticking to tried-and-true business formulas. When the 2000s came around, Carrey changed careers and did a lot of different things. He did voice work for cartoon movies like Horton Hears a Who and A Christmas Carol. With his expressive voice, he brought the characters to life. These projects showed how versatile he was and kept him busy in family-friendly entertainment. He kept up a balance between being well-known in the mainstream and pursuing his own creative hobbies while also giving strong, dramatic performances. During this time, his filmography showed that he was trying to branch out and not just rule the box office like he used to. Carrey went back to working on big franchises in the 2020s when he played Dr. Robotnik in the Sonic the Hedgehog movies. The part brought him back to a large audience and let him return to the over-the-top comedy style that made him famous in the beginning. His act was a mix of physical comedy, theatrical flair, and self-awareness, and it hit home with both new and old viewers. This show showed that Carrey could still hold people's attention while changing his style to fit modern stories. When looked at as a whole, Jim Carrey's life and work show a path marked by change and success. He used to be a stand-up comic in Canada and is now one of the biggest stars in Hollywood. Along the way, he has taken risks and tried new things. He has stayed popular for decades because he can switch between broad comedies, emotional dramas, voice acting, and franchise parts. Casey Carey's work isn't defined by a single period of success. Instead, it shows how creative growth and personal expression can leave a lasting mark on the entertainment industry. Jim Carrey's tragedy and controversies. After a career full of ups and downs, his personal life and public behavior in the 2010s came under more scrutiny. They were often associated with tragedy, debate, and difficult situations. Carrey lost a very important person in his life in 2015 when his girlfriend, Catriona White, killed herself. In addition to having a big impact on his personal life, this sad event put him in the center of a lot of attention from the media. Lawsuits were brought against Carrey, claiming wrongful death, because of how White died. And suggesting that they might be using illegal drugs. The court case was very public and emotional, putting Carrey at the center of a situation that included sadness, public speculation, and complicated legal issues. Even though the cases were later thrown out, the incident showed how public figures are under extra pressure and how quickly a personal loss can become a public issue. A legal look at it and public attention on it. Carrey's career had been built on humor, wit, and high-energy performances for decades. This time was very different from the lightheartedness he brought to audiences for decades, and it showed that even famous performers face deep human problems. This time had an effect on Carrey's interactions with the public and the larger talks he took part in, not just the legal and personal tragedies that happened during this time. Around the middle of the 2000s, Carrey got into a different controversy because of what he said on social media about vaccine-related problems. A lot of people didn't like his posts because they showed strong ideas about how public health should be done. His comments were said to be from his own personal point of view and to start a conversation about health decisions, but many critics said they were false or added to people's fears about vaccines. The controversy brought to light how complicated it is for celebrities to have both social responsibility and a lot of power. This is especially true in a time when social media sites like Twitter make it possible for statements to reach millions of people right away. Carrey's long history of being well-known and making risky decisions in performance meant that his comments were taken seriously, making it reach more people and make the responses it caused stronger. These events show the problem that public figures face today. They have to find a balance between being real and expressing themselves freely, and the moral weight of comments that can have a big impact on how people see them. When it came to Carrey, his outspokenness fit with his honest and sarcastic image that he has had for a long time, but it also showed how closely people look at celebrities who use social media these days. During this time, Carrey was under a lot of personal and public pressure. This showed up at work, especially in jobs that required her to give a lot of time and energy. His role in How the Grinch Stole Christmas, which took a lot of prosthetic makeup, hours of practice, and becoming fully immersed in the role of a very unrealistic character, is one of the best-known examples. As the Grinch, Carrey had to show a level of mental and physical toughness that isn't usually needed in comedic parts. It tested his emotional and physical strength to the limit. According to sources, the demanding nature of the part had a big effect on his mental health. As a result, the production team came up with a lot of ways to help him deal with stress while filming. Carrey worked hard to fully inhabit his personalities, even when it was hard on his physical and mental health. The tests showed how intense the roles were of both roles. These problems tell us that making movies, especially ones that combine physical comedy with intense character work, can be very hard on performers, even those who have been doing it for decades and are very good at it. Tommy Lee Jones's early life and problems. Tommy Lee Jones, on the other hand, was born on September 15, 1946, in San Saba, Texas, a small rural town that had a big impact on the grounded and controlled person he would become as an actor. Jones mostly grew up in Midland, Texas, which is not near the show business. A place where structure, duty, and independence are important. Living in West Texas wasn't very exciting, but it taught him values like hard work and emotional control that would show up in many of his acts later on. Jones was smart and interested in learning from a young age, which made him stand out and opened doors for him beyond his direct surroundings. He got a scholarship to go to St. Mark's School of Texas, a famous private school known for having high standards, because of how well he did in school. Because of this chance, he was able to go to a tough school where discipline and excellence were required. This gave him the chance to grow intellectually and creatively. Having both discipline and opportunities during these formative years set him up for future success in school and later in his career. Jones kept going to school and went to Harvard University in 1965 to study English. He finished with honors in 1969. He found a good mix between intellectual discipline and creative curiosity while he was at Harvard. As an English major, he learned how to read and understand complicated texts, figure out what characters were thinking, and enjoy how stories were put together. Later, these skills would help him as an actor, especially when it came to being able to say lines clearly and with feeling under control. At the same time, Jones was very active in events outside of school. He played football, which took hard work, teamwork, and mental toughness. It helped him keep up the disciplined attitude he had developed earlier in life. Besides sports, he was active in theater, which is where he started to think more deeply about acting. His unique personality as an actor came from the way he combined physical strength with artistic expression. Jones shared a room with Al Gore while he was at Harvard. Gore would later become Vice President of the United States. This detail shows how mentally stimulating and accomplished the environment was where Jones lived. His time at Harvard was important. It taught him to control his emotions, think analytically, and have a quiet confidence that would later define the way he acts. Jones' first movie role was in Love Story, which came out in 1969. This was the actual start of his professional acting career. His first big break in the movie business was this part, even though it didn't make him a star right away. He learned about the real world of film acting by working on big projects and with professionals with a lot of experience. Jones did not become famous overnight. Instead, he took a slow but steady approach to moving forward. In the early 1970s, he spent a lot of time working on TV, which gave him steady work and useful experience. Between 1971 and 1975, he was in a number of TV shows, including parts on One Life to Live. At that time, actors often had to give strong acts on short notice for TV shows, which required them to be quick, flexible, and dependable. Jones was able to improve his skills, sharpen his instincts, and build the discipline he would need for a long-term job in this setting. These years were very important for building his confidence and work credibility, even though he was still a long way from becoming famous. Starting in the 1970s and going through the 1980s, Jones kept working steadily in movies and on TV, slowly becoming known as a serious and reliable actor. He was in movies like Jackson County Jail in 1976, where the parts were more about realism and emotional control than showmanship. During this time, Jones wasn't trying to become famous. Instead, he was working on improving his skills and making a body of work that was strong. In 1982, he got the lead role in The Executioner's Song after a lot of hard work. He won the Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actor for his work on the project, which got him a lot of praise. The moment he got this award was a big turning point in his career. It meant that people in the business saw him as more than just a good actress. He was thought to be able to give complex, emotionally powerful performances at the top level. Jones's Emmy win recognized years of hard work and made her a recognized figure in the acting world. When Jones was in the popular movie Lonesome Dove in 1989, it was a big break for him. The project got a lot of attention and praise, putting Jones in the spotlight in a way that his other work hadn't. People were deeply moved by the emotional depth, quiet leadership, and restraint he showed in his performance. Instead of depending on overt dramatics, showed strength and complexity through controlled delivery and fine expressions. This act was one of the most important in his career and made him much more well-known in the business. Lonesome Dove not only brought him more fans, but it also led to bigger and more difficult parts. Jones went from being a respected character actor to a main character in big productions at that point. Jones was nominated for his first Academy Award in 1991 for his part in JFK. The nomination showed that his work had been praised by critics at the top levels and put him in the company of the most respected actors of his time. His performance showed accuracy, power, and emotional control, which added to the good name he had built up over decades of hard work. In 1993, just 2 years later, Jones won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for his role as U.S. Matthew Marshall Samuel Gerard in The Fugitive. The part showed off his strong screen presence, sharp delivery, and skill at balancing seriousness with slight humor. His performance became well known. It made him a big figure in Hollywood and is remembered for how confident and authoritative it was. When it comes to both reviews and sales, the 1990s were a turning point for Jones. He was in a number of well-known movies that showed off his range and were seen by a lot of people. One of these was Batman Forever, in which he played the bad guy Two-Face with a lot of energy and unpredictability. In the same decade, he became famous for his role in Men in Black and its follow-ups. These movies showed him to a new group of viewers and proved that he could do well in more mainstream, commercially driven projects without losing his unique style. The fact that he was a natural-born killer showed that he was ready to work on difficult and unusual projects. Jones was admired for being consistent and able to play a wide range of roles by the end of the 1990s, making him one of the most well-known and recognized actors in the business. As the 2000s began, Jones continued to play a wide range of parts that showed how experienced and skilled he was as an actor. In 1999, he was in Double Jeopardy. After that, he starred in movies like No Country for Old Men in 2007. A project that got a lot of positive reviews. His acting added to the film's stark reality and emotional weight. In the same year, he was in the Valley of Ella, which added to his reputation for serious, deeply honest acting. In 2012, he was in Lincoln, which was another historically important and well-reviewed movie with his performance. These parts showed that Jones was still committed to challenging material and telling important stories even later in his career. Jones grew as an artist in 2005 when he directed and starred in The Three Burials of Melquiades Estrada. This project was a big step forward in his career because it let him work behind the camera while still playing the lead part. The movie showed how interested he was in telling stories through characters and being emotionally real. He won the Best Actor award at the Cannes Film Festival for his role. This was an important international honor that showed off his skills as both an actor and a director. This accomplishment showed how dedicated he was to telling stories and how ready he was to take creative risks later in his career. It solidified his reputation as a disciplined and highly regarded film figure. Problems and controversies with Tommy Lee Jones. Jones's rise in Hollywood was marked by a steady, disciplined career. In his later years, he continued to play interesting roles, but what really interested people was the stark difference between his public image and his deeply held private values. Jones has a long history of playing figures on screen who are authoritative, in charge, and quiet confident. People either trust, fear, or deeply respect these figures. But when he's not acting, he's known for being quiet, direct, and sometimes publicly hostile towards the media. For decades, people have talked about and speculated about the difference between the calm, in-charge roles he plays and the guarded, often impatient person he is in interviews. According to some sources, this behavior isn't caused by anger or malice, but by him wanting to keep his private life safe and stay away from what he sees as the fake and performance-based parts of Hollywood society. Jones is said to not like press stunts and would rather be honest and quiet than use humor, charm, or carefully practiced public personas. People have often gotten the wrong idea about this carefully crafted public image, especially in a field that values approachability and likability as much as skill. Some people see Jones's directness as a sign of pride or hatred, while others see it as the natural result of values he developed long before he became famous. Jones formed a view of the world based on privacy, self-reliance, and being true to yourself because he grew up far away from the entertainment world. Not celebrity culture, but education, discipline, and life experience over time made these ideals stronger. As his fame grew, so did the expectation that he would follow Hollywood's unwritten rules, which call for constant attention, strategic charm, and emotional openness to the public. Jones, on the other hand, always refused to follow these standards. He was said to have avoided what he called Hollywood's BS, not as a way to rebel against success, but as a way to keep his ethics in a place he thought was naturally dishonest. Jones didn't change how he behaved to fit in with what people thought of him. Instead, he kept clear lines between his work life and his home life. Some people felt uncomfortable around him in real life, even though they admired his performances. This method made the gap between the two even bigger. His unwillingness to put on promotional acts, casual banter, or control his image became an important part of who he was. As time went on, some people saw her refusal to act off-screen as a sign of emotional distance or disdain. Others saw it as an unusually honest business in a field where lies are common. In either case, Jones's public picture was clear because he was always the same. He didn't try to clear up misunderstandings or change people's minds. Instead, he let them come to their own decisions while he focused on his work and his own values. This stubbornness didn't just show up when he talked to the media, it also showed up in his work relationships in the industry. In the late 2000s, Jones went to court with his old talent agency over money he was owed for work on No Country for Old Men. The argument was mostly about fees that were based on his earnings, especially back-end pay and the agency's claim to a big chunk of those earnings. Jones fought orders that told him to pay big commissions, which raised questions about agency representation and how to handle contractual responsibilities. The fight showed how complicated money matters are in Hollywood, especially for veteran actors whose jobs involve many contracts, long-term partnerships, and changing pay systems. What made this legal dispute interesting wasn't the attention it got or the drama involved, it was how well it fit with Jones's well-known image. He didn't settle the problem quietly. To avoid attention, instead, he chose to fight it out in public. This choice showed the same toughness and honesty that had been a part of both his acting and his personality off-screen for years. Some people saw the argument as proof that Jones was tough or unwilling to change. It might have been easier to deal with someone who wouldn't yield, even when they did. Others saw it as a sign of how strongly he believed in fairness, openness, and responsibility in a field that is often criticized for having unclear financial practices. No matter how it is interpreted, the show helped people learn more about Jones. As a person who doesn't mind getting into a fight when he thinks there are important issues at stake. Tommy Lee Jones hates Batman Forever, and Jim Carrey shows it. In the 2000s, Jim Carrey's career was marked by personal deaths and public scandals. He finally talked about a long-standing problem he had with one of his most famous co-stars, Tommy Lee Jones. The news gave an unusual look into how a big Hollywood production works behind the scenes and showed that even famous stars with decades of experience can have problems with other people on set. In an interview with Howard Stern, Carrey, who is known for having a lot of energy that can change at any time, said that Jones openly looked down on him while they were shooting Batman Forever in 1995. Carrey played the Riddler opposite Jones's Two-Face in the follow-up to Batman Returns, which starred Val Kilmer as Batman and was a big hit. Although the chance to work together should have been exciting for both stars, Carrey says that it was tense and uncomfortable from the start. Carrey talked about how excited and impressed he was to work with Jones because he knew how skilled and well-known Jones was in Hollywood. As Carrey put it, I was really looking forward to working with Tommy because he's a great actor, and he still is so great to me. He could tell right away, though, that Jones was acting detached and, in his words, a little crusty. Carrey sometimes said that Jones' Rhodes Scholarship was more of a tool than an asset. This shows that he thought Jones was intellectually stiff or serious, which was different from how he usually acts, which is silly and not serious. This comment shows how different Carrey's high-energy comedic style is from Jones' more disciplined and measured performance style. A difference that, while useful in the workplace, made it hard for them to work together. Carrey also gave some ideas about what might have made Jones seem so hostile. Carrey thinks that the fact that Dumb and Dumber came out the same weekend as Cobb, in which Jones had a role, may have added to the stress. Carrey thought that the joint release might have put pressure on Jones, especially since Cobb was supposed to be his big hit, but didn't do as well at the box office as people thought it would. Carrey said that Jones might have been a little freaked out by this situation and projected his work frustration onto their cooperation. The news shows how outside factors, like how well a movie does at the box office and the release date, can affect the relationships between co-stars and the mood on a movie set, even with very experienced players. It also shows that something that seems like a personal dislike can sometimes have complicated work routes. The way Carrey talked about their first meeting with Jones set the tone for how they would work together in a way that was both passionate and honest. Carrey talked about going into a restaurant the night before shooting an important scene in the Riddler's lair. The maitre d' then told them that Jones was eating in the back corner. Carrey tried to be friendly by walking up to Jones and saying hello. But things quickly went in a different direction than planned. It was at that moment that Carrey noticed the blood leaving his face, which made him realize that he had become Jones's anger or discomfort in some way. This meeting shows how intense the emotional undercurrents can be when artists work together, and it also shows how sensitive experienced actors like Jones are in their work. In addition, it shows how smart Carrey was to pick up on the subtle signs of stress before they even spoke. Jones got more angry when he stood up, hugged Carrey, and told her straight out, "I hate you." When Carrey thought back on the moment, she was surprised and saddened at the same time. She realized that Jones's statement, "I cannot sanction your buffoonery," was both personal and professional. Jones did not want to work with Carrey at that point because of his disagreement with her artistic philosophy and temperament. Jones values control, precision, and authority, while Carrey's style relies on exaggeration, improvisation, and unpredictable energy. This interaction shows how different creative sensibilities can lead to personal tension, even between accomplished professionals who respect each other's talent.